All right, let's dive into one of the most unbelievable stories in all of human history, the totally epic journey of the English language. I mean, seriously, how did a language from this one tiny, foggy island, spoken by just a handful of tribes, become the undisputed global language? It's a wild story of invasion, collision, and some pretty incredible transformation.
You know, the best way to picture English is to think of it like a giant tree. What we see today, American English, Australian English, you name it, that's all the leaves. But the roots, they are buried deep, deep in the past. So today, we're gonna grab a shovel and do some digging.
And our story starts way, way back, long before a place called England even existed. We're going down to those deep, unseen Germanic roots.
Okay, to find the absolute deepest root, we have to travel back in time. Before German, before Latin, even before Sanskrit, there was this mother tongue, Proto-Indo-European. Just think of it as the linguistic great-great-grandmother of hundreds of languages we know today, from India all the way to Ireland, including English.
And the timescale here is just immense. Around 3000 BCE, our mother tongue is being spoken. Fast forward a few thousand years, and one branch of that family, the Germanic tribes, has made its home in northern Europe. And by about 449 CE, they're starting to get restless, and they're looking across the sea. And this means English is not an only child. Oh no, it's part of a huge family. German, Dutch, Swedish, these are its siblings, its cousins. And you can totally still see the family resemblance if you know what to look for.
So that restless Germanic family is about to crash a party on a brand new piece of land. The story now shifts to an island that's about to see a whole lot of invaders.
This right here, this is ground zero for our story, 449 CE. It's the traditional date that the Germanic tribes, the Angles, the Saxons, the Jutes, kicked off their invasion of Celtic Britain. This is the moment, right here, that the language we call English is truly born.
But let me tell you, the language they brought with them, what we call Old English, was an absolute beast. It was a heavy language, just loaded down with complicated grammar. It had 3 genders, so a rock could be a he and a spoon could be a she, and a totally dizzying number of word endings you just had to memorize.
I mean, just look at this table. And these are only some of the different endings for nouns, all depending on how you use them in a sentence. It was a grammatical minefield, and a million miles away from the English we speak today. Now let's compare that whole mess to modern English. Day, days. Word, words. It's simple, it's clean, it's efficient. One little s now does the work that a dozen different endings used to do. And this simplification, it's one of the biggest secrets to English's success. But even from the very beginning, English was, well, it was a thief. It borrowed words from everyone it bumped into. It grabbed a few place names from the Celts, some practical words from the Romans, and a huge chunk of our core everyday vocabulary from the Vikings, words like law, die, and even odd. But everything we've talked about so far, that was just the appetizer. The main course, the single biggest, most transformative event in the entire history of English, was just about to be served. So get ready for the Great French Makeover. 1066. If you remember one date from this whole story, make it this one. This is when William the Conqueror and his Norman French army invade and conquer England, and for the next few hundred years, French becomes the language of power. Period. The new reality was crystal clear. English was now the language of the conquered peasants out in the fields. But French, that was the language of the court, of the law, of government, and of anyone who wanted to get ahead in life. So you end up with this linguistic class system. The Anglo-Saxon farmer raises a cow or a pig, but the Norman lord eating it for dinner calls it beef or pork. English soaked up thousands of French words for things like law, government, and all the finer things in life: judge, crime, royal. The result was a fantastically rich vocabulary. So out of this huge collision of languages, a brand new English starts to emerge, one that was leaner, simpler, and pretty much perfectly designed to go global. So what happened? Well, under all that pressure from French, the heavy old grammar of English just collapsed. Those complicated endings? Gone. The simple S took over for just about all plurals. And get this, of the 18 ways to say the, only a couple survived. The language got lean and mean. And what you end up with is this newly streamlined, light version of English, With its massive vocabulary and its now simple grammar, it was actually pretty easy to learn and incredibly flexible, the perfect tool for the coming era of global exploration, trade, and empire.
And that brings us to the final act of our story, how this newly forged language got packed in a suitcase and spread all across the globe with the British Empire.
The merchants and the soldiers and the administrators who built the empire, they were thinking about profit and power. They had absolutely no clue that the language they were speaking would outlast every single fort, every trading post, and every border they ever drew on a map.
I mean, just think about what's left. The lands were returned, the powerful trading companies dissolved, the money was spent. The one thing that remains, the most profound and lasting legacy of that entire historical era, is the English language itself.
And this quote from T.S. Eliot just sums it all up perfectly. Who on earth could have predicted that those Germanic invaders back in 449 would set off a chain reaction that results in a global language? Their beginning could never, ever have known this end.
From the language of conquest to a tool for global connection, science, and art, its journey has been nothing short of astonishing. Which leaves us with one final thought to ponder. What's the next chapter in the epic story of English?